Okay, awesome. Hi,
Hello.
everyone. We're live actually from Alan's account, even though this is officially an interview from EFA Studios with Alan. So it will actually this video will also appear on the EFA Studios account as well, and I'm just going to put that in the comments so everybody can find us. So that's at EFA Studios. Okay, so if anybody would like to come find us afterwards, feel free to go check out that account. So hi, Alan.
Hello.
So my name's Natalia Nakazawa. I'm the assistant director for the EFA studio program. And we are very, very excited to be in the studio with Alan, who is one of our new members, but has actually been with the Elizabeth Foundation for the Arts in different capacities for the past, 3.5 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And so he's awesome, and we'll be checking out some of his new works. So, Alan, if you could just introduce yourself to your fans, which hopefully most of them already know you because they're following you.
So I'm Alan. I've been around with the EFA for about 3.5 years. I started off as an intern, as their summer intern. I got that gig, or was notified of that gig through Bill, who is the studio's program director and who is my professor. So beyond that, I was also an assistant to multiple artists for a number of years, and then after a while, I got hired on as like a studio manager with one of the artists here. And then I think this spring, I just decided one day, like, maybe I'll apply to be a member, and I was shocked that I got in. Didn't get in originally. I got in like first alternate, and then someone dropped out and I was in. So
I'm not surprised at all. Your work is incredibly strong, and it makes a lot of sense. But I do love your story because I think it speaks amply about like the way that an artist can start out, that you can actually have different relationships with an organization and grow and, have, over time, like different roles that you occupy. So I think it's a really hopeful story. And I think it's one that, if there are other, sort of young artists out there, you can sort of become many different things in the art world.
yeah, you
And
start off as an assistant.
yeah, you could start off an assistant, and then eventually you take up your own space when your work is recognized. And I think it's, again, really beautiful, consistent, just gorgeous work. So very excited to be in your studio. And you were just at a residency, which is our sister residency in Long Island. So did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so Dhruv Patel and the Dehi also have, or friends of the EFA, they have a residency, they have a house out in Long Island, and they have this beautiful potato farm building, which is like a weigh station from the 19th century, where they used to weigh potatoes out of the field. And they have it in their backyard, and they can use it as a studio. So they thought, well, we can just invite artists to stay here and use the studio for a month and live at the house. And a lot of people in the building applied, and I got one of the studio slots. There were 3. So I stayed out there for a month near the beach and everything, so it was a lot of fun. I stayed there to actually gather a lot of materials for assemblage. So this is like driftwood. I have a lot of stuff on the tray out here on the floor. And I got a lot of stuff there because I'm going to be doing a lot more assemblage, because this is a lot of my studio work here, but I do have a lot more like multidisciplinary work. So I do a lot of installation and land art. But prior to this residency, I had just got back from Arizona. So I went pretty much straight from Arizona to this residency. So all the stuff from Arizona I used at the residency. So all the red paintings are from Arizona.
And this is all the way that you collect your materials. This is all like clay and natural materials.
Yes.
That you're finding and sourcing.
I usually find all of my clays and soils and stuff when I go travel. Sometimes I'll just have to take a backpack if I'm not traveling, and just go anywhere around New York. But these are actually from I think southern Arizona. And the clay there was just so red, I just had to stop and gather like 50 pounds of it and ship it to the mail. And I thought that was like the nerdiest thing in the world to do. But it was a lot of fun to do. But I shipped like multiple different varieties. So this is a different variety than this. This is an orangier. This is a grayer variety. And then I used some of this dark clay to make paints. You know, 'cause it's so iron heavy and so laden with iron.
Did you have to do any processing to the clay materials before creating the paints with it or pigments with it?
This actually, no. The red stuff, no. The black, yes. The black is actually charcoal. But the red, absolutely, because I didn't have to do much because it was so fine. It was like the finest soil I've actually got. It was almost like pigment, like machine-made pigment almost. It was amazing. Normally, like this stuff, it's a lot chunkier, and I normally have to slake it, you know, to make it fine, to get all the fine particles. Otherwise, it's just too coarse.
Right, and slaking, what's the process of slaking?
Slaking, I put like a bunch of it in a bucket, pour a bunch of water in it, mix it up,
right,
and then pour off all of the water, and do that several times until you get like sand. So you're basically washing all the sand out. And you do that 2 or 3 times, and you get like a very fine particulate. And then you let that dry, and you get really fine powder. So that's what slaking is.
Right, and then you're mixing it with various like oils and...
Sometimes I'll use like, if I'm looking for...
This
is more of a wood finish oil, but I'll use stand oil to get it like really, really thick. I like a little bit of a gooey consistency. It can't be too thin. Like, this is a good example. Like, it can't be too thin. You really want it to be like incised, you know, into the material. So you have multiple layers that are incised, you know. And it takes forever to dry. Like, it's a pain. Sometimes I actually use this tung oil to make it dry faster because it has a dryer in it.
Like a drying agent.
Yeah, like a drying agent. And sometimes I'll actually use pre-mixed paints if I feel like there's not enough consistency. If it's too coarse, I'll mix in.
So you combine a little bit.
I do, yeah. Otherwise, it's just.
But what about this shellac? What do you use shellac for?
Shellac, I use that for assemblage.
Oh, okay.
I'm like really gearing up for assemblage. I'm really excited for this. Sometimes I use it for leaves, these kind of like drippy ones or the iron-based ones to seal off the background. You know, because this is like iron water basically dripping for like a week. You know, and it'll make this beautiful kind of iron stain. But it's basically more steps. It's that with more steps, basically. And then this is a tapestry work. This is actually, I tried to get like away from stretched canvases a little bit and away from panels.
Oh, someone's asking about linseed oil. Do you use linseed oil?
I do.
Or is that too thin?
I do use linseed oil. I prefer stand. I'm trying to look for, I mean, I have...
And the preference of stand oil is just because it's a thicker consistency.
Right. It's like honey.
Right.
You know, it's a lot thicker. Sometimes I'll mix in a little bit of beeswax, although that's not actually what you should be doing. But you never know. You sometimes need something. So I think this is... I'm going to do a large one, a red one like this. Like this was...
And you're calling these tapestries, right? These pieces?
I'm calling them tapestries. No, they're not true tapestries.
Right.
Because true tapestries are woven. The design is woven. This is actually applied.
Right.
Yeah, so it's more applique than tapestry. Like more of a painting that's unstretched. But...
And how are you coming up with these sort of... I feel like there's a ratio or a sensitivity to... just the different ratios in your paintings. Like, how do you sort of develop that? Is there a language? Do you have, like, something that just feels right? Like, how do you determine the sort of horizon of your paintings?
Math.
Math?
Math.
Great. I love that answer.
It's the golden ratio, basically.
It is the golden ratio.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the golden ratio, or it's thirds, you know? So I'll cut it out into fourths, and then 1/3 or 1/4 of it. Sometimes I'll do thirds, sometimes fourths. Like the longer ones are fourths.
The longer ones are fourths.
Yeah, I think this is third. That's fourth.
And so that's depending on like the width.
The width, yeah. So if it's long like this, then it needs to be a fourth. If it's a third, it's like awkwardly down here. It's kind of like someone, like it almost got its shirt off or something. It doesn't look right. But yeah, this one's actually water based.
Oh, that's a water-based piece.
This one's water based, and it's much thicker, because I got like lots and lots of acrylic mediums and stuff, which is a lot of fun.
Do you find that if you use a water-based kind of, I mean, does it fall off, or does it have a tendency to?
No, like I could like try to pick at this,
right,
and it would take a lot of energy to actually kind of.
Okay, so it's pretty well fixed on there.
It is. Like I actually use brooms to sweep off the excess.
Right.
Because I don't want it to be too dusty. Same thing with these.
I mean, I love the physicality of the works and how, I mean, there's definitely like an energy that's in each of the pieces, the sort of like ecstatic mark making that you do.
Yeah.
And do you have to like be in a certain like mental space to do, I mean, are you excited? Like, what are you feeling when you're doing these works?
Definitely have to be in a mental state. Like right now would not be a good time for me to do
Well, like I know we were just talking about how you're feeling low energy today, and like so I'm curious, like what do you do to sort of put yourself into the mental space to do these works?
Sometimes I listen to really like exuberant classical music.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. Like an expansive.
Yeah, expansive, exuberant classical music, and then it transitions to something like an EDM when I'm actually working.
Mm-hmm.
So like sit down and get my materials together with classical music, and then I switch it to something
more hardcore.
Yeah. And then I'm like in the zone, and that's a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun doing that. But I'm starting to switch off to doing more things that are like, I don't have the can anywhere, but it's more like fiberglass resin or like polyester resin. Because like you can only do so much with oil paint, and I wanted to do things that are like really, really dense, and very like, I want the marks to be very bold, very heavy. Because sometimes I'll. Are
you going to have to switch up tools to do that? Like, are you going to use a hammer? Like, what would you use to do those kinds of marks?
I would probably use hammers, like screwdrivers, things like that. Because it's all going to have to be mixed, and it's going to be like a goopy mess, really. So. I've tried it once on like a really big one, and I probably should have done it small originally. Right. But it worked really well, so I have a really large one that I like. And I'm thinking about doing wall-mounted works that are like that too. Like
Ooh, that's fantastic. That sounds really exciting. Also, I mean, I think that, one of the fiberglass pieces that you did that was sort of like almost like an archaeological dig, like a piece from outside of Pratt. And then the lighting, the way that you created this sort of total environment, I think some of that stuff is really exciting.
Yeah, like I tried to make it more of like a cordoned off, and it has like these false walls around it. So in the photo, you don't see anything but this piece.
But that piece, right? It has this sense of like either an archaeological sort of dig or some kind of, you can't tell if it's really a past or a future kind of thing, or
macro, like more like, is it zoomed in, is it zoomed out?
Yeah, something you had said during your artist talk at the potato farm was about the futurity of like what the earth will look like in the future, like 1,000 years in the future, 2,000. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about what do you think the earth will look like in 1,000 years?
Desertified, most likely. I just think, like earlier in the pandemic when all the fires in California were happening, that was like unbelievable. Like it was shocking and horrible because I love California and I love the woods in California, but it was also so shockingly beautiful at the same time, like haunting. Mm-hmm. And it was almost like, wow, I'm looking out into the future. And, it's kind of like a sci-fi almost aspect to it. And that's what I think about a lot of my work. A lot of the underpinnings of it is like, what is Earth going to be like in 100 years, 1,000 years, 10,000 years? Like, when we think about 10,000 years in the past, Earth was completely different, So that's a lot of like what I'm thinking about when I'm working on my work. So that underpins a lot of my installation work. Yeah. So, and the installation work, I'm still ongoing, It's a lot of fun though.
But I like these as sort of like speculative, like contemplative spaces. Like I think of, Rothko, or I think of like these sort of dream spaces. Yeah. But then it's like that, but then, the materials speak to the urgency of climate change and
because it's desertified soil.
Yeah, it's desertified soil, and I wonder, I almost feel like you should start including some coral that's been, bleached coral.
I have a piece right here.
Oh, great. There we go.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, because I feel like there's just like there's a strength in using these materials that also is kind of like as a statement.
Yeah, and like a lot of this stuff. So these are like rusticles and parts
Look
of
at all this treasure.
I mean, most people think it's trash. I'm like, hey, this is great for me. And I love these shells. They wash up all over the East Coast. They're like eaten away.
Yeah, I wonder what if this is it's like natural causes of these or is it just because of the material it just starts.
I should actually research that too because I have a huge amount of them at my parents' house. And I think they're like worms that eat the calcium or something. Sea life. Oh, this is one thing I really like. This is a coyote melon.
Oh,
so
great.
like these melons that grow in the middle of the Mojave Desert with like 2 inches of rain a year. It'll be like 120 degrees in the desert.
Wow.
And there's like melons. I'm like, what?
Wow.
So this is kind of cool for me. It's like cockroaches almost. Like this
right.
Is gonna be around.
No, that's what I think about cockroaches. I'm like, they're just amazing and they're just going to be around forever. So we have like about 5 more minutes or so because I also your phone is dying. Your battery's dying. So anyway, we're going to just make it like another 5 minutes. But I just, if there's anything else that you want to show us in the studio, there's so much amazing work in here.
Yeah, so like these are like wasp nests that have like lots of bees. Like bees took over a wasp nest, and so there's honey, and a lot of this is actually pollen that's been like in a wasp nest. And I just thought this was like such a work of art,
Absolutely, and I love this idea of like layered species taking over, like one species taking over the housing of another one.
Yeah, and it was in the desert, so I guess I have to, but like, this is an up close. So you can see the details.
Yeah, you can really see some of the details, and there is it's not just completely flat. I mean, there is a little bit of topography on these.
Yeah.
That's really exciting.
And that's like see more of the details there. But it's 3-dimensional. A lot of it is.
Yeah, and I'm enjoying some of these sort of like stacking.
Yeah, like I've had fun
relationship building.
Hanging a lot of this stuff, and another one that's. I like these red ones. I don't know why, but I just like. I guess because they're new. You know how you.
But also the depth is the color is really exceptional.
Right, it's just kind of scenes, and I don't. I'm not gonna. Claim authorship of the color because that's not me.
No, but it's just I think it was worth your packing it all 50 pounds of it and shipping it over here. I think it's just an incredible material.
I love it.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, these are beautiful. I love this.
Yeah, that's a lot of rust.
Yeah.
Tetanus shots.
Oh my gosh.
I need to get up on my tetanus shots and I think about it.
So you're like, I need tetanus shots. For this one, like, what do you use for the iron pieces? Do you just have like a piece of rusty iron around?
Like, that's like some of this is great because this like will bleed iron absolutely everywhere.
Oh wow.
The instant you get this thing wet. And this is just sand that has like an iron piece in it, and it's sand that's kind of like it's like
crusted.
Yeah, because the iron.
Where'd you find this piece?
Expanded out. This was actually on the beach in Jamesport, on Long Island.
Oh, great!
It's a fun little find.
Really cool.
Ooh, wasp nests and I don't know. I really like collecting stuff.
I know. I'm like they just look like the moon. Like things that you would find on another planet. They're so familiar and yet so alien at the same time. And I think maybe that's the aspect of it. I mean, I wouldn't say that your work is overtly sci-fi or anything, but I do feel like maybe it's in those moments where you're like, is this the moon? Is this the surface of the moon? Is this the surface? Like this sort of like unlocatable aspect where you're like, I don't know where this is exactly.
Right.
And I like the moments where there's a lot of like diverse, like it's really different. Like you can see like these two pieces are really drastically different.
Yeah, I actually.
This one is gorgeous.
Thank you. I want to do more of those.
This one's amazing. I'm like, how do you even do that?
That one was layers and layers and layers. That was below like a wall where I had a lot of these. I was doing a lot of these on a wall at one point, and this was like wet below the wall, and it collected all the dust for like a week.
Oh, it's really magical.
It took so much to actually preserve that. It took so much to preserve that because I was like, I picked it up and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And I had to like spray it with adhesive, and it took a lot.
It's a real fragile piece, but it's really absolutely.
Yeah, I mean it's
like magical. Yeah, now it looks like it's pretty.
Now it's like rock hard. Before it was like. Oh.
It just reminds me of like, you know, being in the caves of Virginia. Like my family moved up north, and we like stopped through in one of these caverns and discovering like stalactites and stalagmites and like all of the different, you know, jewel like kind of gross but also beautiful stones. And I don't know, there's some of that discovery that I feel when I look at your work.
Thank you. It's I love like hunting down a lot of the objects and a lot of the materials. So
yeah, I think it has a lot of that like sort of magical joy of discovery, even if the pieces they seem like they're not like overtly joyful either. Like I feel like there's a somberness to the work, but I also really enjoy like the discovery and the like, just like the amount of textures.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be like totally somber. I didn't want it to be too joyous. It's like I think it's kind of like in between.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think we need to end this because I don't want it to die. But thank you all for joining us. And then we're doing this, you know, if you join us on EFA Studios in the future, first of all, we love posting Alan's work, so make sure to go check that out. And then we will be doing various studio visits with artists every 2 weeks. So I hope to see you there. Okay, thanks everyone.
Bye, thank you.
Bye. Let's see if...